hi again. So first of all, let me just ask you, has anyone created an app with what they learned yesterday? Because we were going to do a little showcase. I'm not too hopeful with the audience size right now, but if you have created something, I would love to see it.
Actually, I tried creating something, but it's not very advanced, and I just discovered an online IDE to just work on Flutter. So that was my biggest discovery after yesterday.
Yeah, so I forgot to mention it. It was one of the things I want to talk about today. Yeah, so you're talking about Dartpad, right?
No, it was something like FlatLab.
Oh, really? It's like not an official, it's like a third-party thing?
I think that's like that, but there is no problem to just run it. You just need to register and do what you want to do.
That's cool. Do you have it like ready now?
Yeah, I can show it.
That would be great. Because you also have a Dartpad. It's like the official one. It's a bit more limited, but you can like try out single pages, I think. Yeah. In fact, the startup namer we did yesterday, you can do the entire thing on Dartpad. It's actually like it tells you to do so in the tutorial. Oh, this looks really nice.
You can just run it. It just puts you in a queue, but your turn just comes easily.
That's nice. And this is, I guess, the first time you're building, right? So it's
no, I did build actually, but it does build it again. I think the time passed, so it needs to build again.
Yeah, I guess so. But you do have like hot reload and stuff. You don't need to build again every time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
I think it will be finished in a bit, hopefully.
You can wait a couple more seconds. Does anyone else have anything to show?
Yeah, I couldn't do much. So.
Okay, that's okay. Did you try, or like, did you just not have
No,
time?
I was not able to do anything.
Okay, as you see, I did basic things, just changing the title and the color, but the online ID I wanted to show.
Yeah, that's great. So that is the kind of like, you couldn't really do much more than this anyway, with what we saw. But today, hopefully, you will learn some new things and build more advanced apps. But that looks great. I mean, just being able to change the color and title, whatnot, that means you have like pretty much sort of learned the structure, how it generally works. So that's, I guess, the most important thing you can learn when beginning. With that said, good job, thank you. And maybe I can start sharing now, and I'll show you what we're going to be doing today. So I thought that since, if I remember correctly, the workshop was going to be, the hackathon was going to be SDG themed. So I thought, why not build an app that shows you SDGs, right? So this is going to be the end result from today. We're going to use an API that it's like, if you know mockapi.io, we'll basically just fetch some JSON data from there and use it to build a list of the SDGs. And we will also, if we have time, have a search functionality. So we will have user inputs. And if it's, say, poverty, you can see it will search for it. Obviously, out of 17 goals, search functionality isn't really needed, but it's just to, just to teach you. Okay, so first let's see what sort of thing we're dealing with, right? We have all these goals, and really what they have is like an icon here. I can't hover over it because it does this, but you see the square icons. We have like the goal number. We have the goal like short name, so no poverty, zero hunger, and so on, and then a short description. So that's the sort of data we will be concerned with. And to start, we will start from scratch, right? I'm not going to just show you how this works. We're going to be building it together. So I will just go ahead and create a new app. Let's call it like SDG app. And then once it runs, so I will have this like, so this is the app that's running right now. I will have it like to decide to, you know, I haven't memorized everything. So you will see me going back and forth, but hopefully you can do it exactly the same without looking. Okay, so that's fine. You have created the starter app. You can see this is the same code as before. And let's just run it right now. Let it do its first build, because that will take like a minute or so. And then like just to like get an overview of what we will be doing, let's try to like analyze this visually, right? So what do we have here? If you think about the app we made yesterday, the startup namer thing, it's actually pretty similar, right? We have a list, we have some list tiles. This time they're not just texts, but they're like custom widgets. But really the idea is the same, right? You have the main body is just a list view. We have some children. Where's my mouse like this? Yeah, we have some children that we populated with. The only difference is going to be this time we will be using some networking calls to do this dynamically instead of like generating things locally. We will use an API, and let me just show you while it's loading. So I have basically created like a mini database here. We will be like just reading all this data, and it's going to be really easy. If you have done anything like something like this before, reading data from a JSON, it's really not going to be a big deal, except for how Flutter deals with features. But you know, I'll explain everything. Okay, so.
By the way, if I try to follow along with you on my computer, can I access this data set or?
Sure. Although, do it at your own risk, because I'm probably going to have to go a bit fast because of the time constraints. But let me just like paste this. You can try. I mean, actually, if you want, I can just push this right now, and you can use the repo. How about that?
Okay, let's try.
Okay, so I can just say, okay, we do have like a couple of apps here, that including like we have like duplicates because these new ones we made like yesterday. So I'm just going to push all of them, and the one that's running right now is Flutter_app. So that's the one you will want to take a look at. So let me just push all that. Come on. Okay, there we go. We can't do a name. A change with a commit with 252 changes, I guess. Okay, so that should be working, and let me also paste this. So with the endpoint being SDGs. You can also do things like, I will show you, but just so you know, you can also like add parameters. Like you could do like the mock API, that website allows you to do things like this for search. So that's how that works. So I have no idea why it's taking so long. That shouldn't be the case. Like, maybe we can try doing it again. Let's stop it. Oh, hold on. Yeah, we should have started the simulator first, because I did close it. Okay, sorry for the wait. This just sometimes happens and you don't really have control over it. I suspect it's Xcode's fault, because it's the usual suspect. If something goes wrong, it's usually Xcode. And probably not Flutter, because Flutter didn't really do anything here, right? It just created the starter app. Okay, so it's ready. We can run without debugging. If you don't remember, so we have run code and we have like these. We want to choose this for it to launch as an app. If you just had some Dart code, then you would say you would use this one. Okay, but then so maybe we could start by just browsing this code, right? So if you go to main.dart, just so you know, we're looking at something while we wait. What we're going to do is we're going to again have this main thing, the app itself. This doesn't really change, but then this page is different. So you can see the widget part is the same, but in the state we have this entire page. It's not too bad. The only new thing here is going to be we're going to have that button that I pressed, if you remember, and then we will have something called the future builder. Okay, I believe this time it will work. Like hopefully it does, because if it doesn't, I don't know what to do. Maybe we'll have to use that online thing in the end. We will have, this time we will also do something like this. We will have a class that's not a widget. I didn't show that last time. We'll have this class that contains the data. Then we will use that data like class to convert. We will convert it to a tile using this widget. Those tiles that you saw were, you know, they're right here. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Right, and then we will have these like fetch calls. You can see. So like if you're familiar with stuff like this should be like pretty much exactly the same for like Python and whatnot, right? We will have a separate page this time that we will push. We will have a style sheet, sort of like CSS, and yeah, so that's like the overview. And now that it's actually here, finally, we can start coding. So, okay, let's see. So main.dart, what do we need to remove? Pretty much everything, right? So apart from like this, my app entry points, we don't really need like all of this, right? So that can go. Of course, it's going to be an error because we deleted this. So let's just say we're going to call it homepage, right? I guess it will be const. Our homepage won't have like a parameter like this. Instead, what we will do is, instead of the default, we will create stateful widget named homepage. Right, and now it's just going to be a black screen because it's an empty container. So yeah, you can see that works. Before we fix that though, I think I want to remove that debug banner. Really the most important thing we need to do. Come on, yeah. Okay, so now if you remember, we use a scaffold for these widgets, that's for like these like root widgets, sort of, that take up the entire screen. So we will be returning a scaffold. If we just save it, it's going to be white, and then we can add an app bar like we did before. And so our app bar is, so for now, let's just do this, right? We can say the title is going to be text. And let's say it will show United Nations, right? We can do something like that. So now, if you remember in the example, like in the finished app, this was white. We can do that later, but we also had like an image here, right? How do we add an image from the internet or from anywhere, right? So we have to figure that out. For this example, we will be importing the image into the app. Hold on, just a second. I'm going to put everything I'm going to use in the desktop. Wait, did the share stop? Sorry.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Okay, okay.
Okay, sorry. Right, so actually, no, I think I can just pull it from here. So, okay, so this is the example thing. So you can see in this other app that we have already done, we have this assets folder, and then we have images under it, and then logo.png. So that's what we will do here. We will, in SDG app, let me just, anyway, we can just drag and copy it here. So in this SDG app, we will create a folder named assets. You can name it anything, it doesn't matter. And then in assets, let's say like we have images. Again, you don't have to, you can put your image anywhere, it doesn't matter. It's just, you know, as an example. And then in this folder, we can take this and paste this here. It can be any image. This is the color wheel logo in the goals here. I think you can see it in the small icon. I guess they didn't use it in the website, but this is the one here. Okay, so how do we actually access this, right? So first of all, we need to tell Flutter that we have this image as an asset, and the way we do it is just like adding a dependency, like a package. You come to postspec YAML, and here you can already see an example, right? It says to add assets to your application, add an asset section like this. So here, their example is also an image, but of course we don't have like this particular one, right? What we have is we have assets, images, and we named it logo.png. So this is the one we have, right? So if we save it now, VS Code will run Flutter pub-get for us. You might have to do it manually if if your IDE doesn't support that. But here, if you go back, now what we can do is we can use that image wherever we want, and I will show you how. So let's say, okay, so the app bar has this thing called the leading elements. It's what it puts here, and for that we will be using our image, right? So let's say, so image as a class. So okay, you have this image class that is a widget, a stateful widget, and we will use one of its constructors, right? So you can say just a new image, but you can also say image.assets and also network. But for this one, we will say image.assets to pull an image from our existing assets. And we will just provide that path again. So if we go over to here and copy this path again, and this should be assets. And the comma here, it should work unless I need to do a hot restart. So no, okay, it worked. So you can see it's already here. It's a bit too large, and also the blue background doesn't really work, right? So what we could do is change this color to white, but that's not going to work because of this. So if you remember, we didn't do color, we did swatch, right? And a swatch is like, it's this entire thing. It's like an array of colors. So instead of like changing the swatch, and with white, you only have like just the single white. So we can't really give white here. It's kind of complicated and annoying, to be honest. You could create your own custom swatch that only has whites for every shade. But what we could instead do is just set the background color on this app bar. So what we will do is say colors.white. Of course, when we do that, the text color is still white, and it's going to be invisible. But that's also an easy fix. We can say style. So new text style, text style, and we will say color is colors black. Okay, that's fine. And I believe it is at least. What's the problem? Is it just, yeah, okay. Right, and if you reload, you can see it's back in. And also, let's kind of like make this the right size first. So what we could easily do is just wrap this with some padding, right? So it kind of shrinks, and that looks about right to me. So let's keep it that way. So what I did here, if you didn't follow, in VS Code with command period, again you can click, like when you select the widgets, you don't have to like select the whole line. When your cursor is on a widget, you can just do these things with command period. and it's literally the same as typing it by hand. It's just easier. Okay, so with that, there's something else I want to do. If you check the guidelines for the SDG goals, like their brand identity, they use two different fonts. So this one here is called Oswald, and this one here is Roboto. So what you can do is these are both like open source free fonts, and you can find them on Google Fonts. See, just search for it, like Oswald, click it, and then you can either select like some of the styles, like different weights, or you can download the entire family, which is what I have already done. And what we will do is we will use Oswald for this United Nations title. So the way we do that is just like we added the image, we can go to PubSpec YAML and add it here. But of course, first we need to import it. So here, very similarly, what I did is I create the fonts folder, and then we have Oswald and Roboto. I'll just copy this over to here.
By the way, how did you know which font it was?
I checked the guidelines, but also what you could do is just inspect the elements. So, like if you choose this, right, it's not updating, but yeah, oh yeah, just update and I close it. So see this one, it still says Oswald, I think. Oh yeah, this is Oswald, and then the other one is Roboto.
Okay, thank you.
I will actually use it once more. I'll show you again something else there, some other cool trick you can do. But here I just like copied that over, and now in this SDG app we have a fonts folder with 2 fonts, and so for Roboto we just have like fonts, Roboto, and the files. For this one it's a bit different. We have fonts, Oswald, static. So what this means is Oswald also provides a variable like weight font. So instead of like going like medium, semi-bold, bold, you can just like continuously go through them. We don't need all that right now. So these will be the ones we use. So just in case you come across that later on, that's what it is. But the way we will do it is, again, I can copy it over from the old one. So I'll copy it first and then explain it. So if you come here and just like paste it here. Okay, so what we do is, what did I press accidentally? I pressed something, I have no idea what it was. Hopefully it won't break anything. Okay, so we say, just like assets here, we say fonts, we define the family, and then, right, so it says fonts twice. I think that is the way it should be. So normally, like, just like I'm also a Mava student, so I have to tell you this. Fonts is like a specific like weight and style. Like if italic bold, right, that's a font. But this entire family is called a typeface. So really, this should be a typeface, but it's wrong, and you know they sort of corner themselves, and right, they have to call both of these fonts, which is kind of weird, but yeah. But we save this, and then these weights are just you can check them here. So if you go here, we sort of have to tell Flutter like, okay, we have this file, right? But it needs to know which weight it is. Like, is it bold? Is it the regular one? So you can either do like these numbers, or you can also say like bold. But numbers are kind of better because like, I know it's very clear what they represent, but the definition of bold could be different for a different font. So you can just check that here, right? What does it mean for what the number represents? You can check it while you're searching for your fonts. But you have to run Flutter pub-get again, and assuming it's all fine, we don't need a restart. What we can do is in this text style, we can just say we can say font family, and we can give it as a string, and hopefully it will just work. yeah, so it probably needs a restart because we added some files to the thing, right? Didn't load them in. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, let me just check if. Okay, let's just see if I made a mistake here. No, that looks right. We also have the fonts here, so it's exactly the same path. Maybe. It will probably fix itself, but just to make sure, like, I haven't done something horribly wrong, let's just run it again. So this is sort of like the hierarchy you follow, right? You first do a hot reload for small changes. If something weird happens, you do a hot restart. If you still can't figure it out, you still don't blame yourself. You still blame the machine and do a full like restart, and then only then you say, oh, maybe I did something wrong. Okay, so let's see. It shouldn't take that long now because we did build once. And maybe if you're like wondering what this actually does, and like maybe I can take this time to explain some other folders here, right? So it says running Xcode build for iOS. What that means is basically like Apple's thing. Xcode is it's building an iOS application, and all its files you will see here. So if you actually like come here, it's pretty much an entire project in and of itself. And for Android, it's similar. You have like all these Android related stuff here. In fact, you can see like you have all this. You can actually like add Flutter codes to existing applications as well, because it's sort of like it's not like running in its own virtual thing, right? It's converting to native code, so it is possible to mix and match. I believe I haven't done it, but it is something they mention. Right. Okay, it's done. It's launching. Nice. Okay. Come on. There we go. So yeah, you see it works. So you just needed a fresh start. Now it's a bit, maybe we could make it a bit larger as well, just to show you like how styles work. Oh, sorry, we're already in the style. Say font size. This I believe is like 18 or 16. Let's go with like 22. Yeah, maybe like that's better. I don't know. Just a preference thing. So we can keep it that way. You can also say like fonts weights, because we had all those weights, remember? So the way you use those is you say like font weights W and then the number. So here we don't have all of them because I didn't bother, but we have 500s, we have 700, I believe. So that will be 700 is the largest we have. So it should make a difference if we import it correctly. So yeah, so you can see it became bolder. I think 400 we can. Okay, that's a little too light. Yeah, I guess this 500 is like the Goldilocks zone, right? So okay, that works. What else? So if you remember, we wanted to add a list view here. So let's just see like where that will be placed, right? So after the app bar, we have the body. Like very simply, we already know how to do this. We can say list view, right? We can say children, and then we could give it a list tile, and then the list tile could have a title that said like hello, right? This would work, hopefully, right? And then we could say, well, I want more hellos. I want all the hellos. You could just copy this over and over. And what did I do? Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. I think I closed it accidentally. So let me find it again. Right, save it. Yeah, so this works. It's a list. You can scroll it. With list styles, you have all this nice padding and whatnot, and it's all fine and dandy. However, this is not what we want exactly, right? We want to have all that data that we have in the database. That's what we want to show. So let's start simpler. Let's like add one manually. Like we will create like a structure for. So when we get the data, we will have everything else ready. We'll just like transform it. But right now, let's create the structures that we need, and like we will pass values by hand at first, right? So what we will do is, since we want another widget, since we want this like custom widget, we can create another class that will extend from like stateful or stateless widget. We will think about it in a second, and then we can like instead of this list style, we can just use that, right? Just like we did yesterday with build row, we used a function to return a widget, but we can also create an actual widget, right? So what we will do is, for the first time, we will have another file here, and imports are really easy. It's not like Python where like you have all these, like it treats everything as a package and whatnot. This is really easy. It's more like Java. What we'll do is we will call this like sdg.dart. For sustainable development goal. And then, okay, so we have this empty thing, right? That's fine. So the first thing we will create is a class called SDG. This will be our like container class that contains the data. And it won't extend anything. It will be very simple, just like a struct, right? It will have, let's say, a name, right? We can have a name. We can have a description. We will call it desk. We want an ID for it to know which goal it is, which number of goal it is. You can say like int, final int ID, and then one more thing we can have is we will again have a string, and this will be we will use a URL for the image. So we want to like download the images. We'll pass in URLs and then show those images. Like we will pull them again, but that will be really easy. Flutter has something built in for it. So we'll say like icon source, okay? Icon src for icon source. So you can see all these errors now, and that's because these are final, and we don't like there is no way to initialize them right now, because we do have default constructor just like in Java, the empty constructor, but then it won't initialize these. So we need to define a constructor. And what we can do is we can say create constructor for final fields, and it will do it for us. The thing here, though, if you remember, these are all positional parameters now. So if you remember, we had to do like, if we wanted them to be named, we could do this, right? So right now, if I were to create a new SDG, I will do like, so the name, some string, and then the description, some other string, but then like it will get kind of long, right? So I have all of these things, but I don't know which one is which. So instead, what we could do is come here, put them all in the braces, and then it will still complain. But the reason it's complaining is this. So if you put them like this, they do become named parameters, but they also become optional, which means you're optionally saying not initializing this, right? So we need to initialize all of them. See, the parameter name can't have a value of null because of its type, but the implicit default value is null. So because it's optional, we need to make it not optional because it's final. So we just say required for all of them. I mean, you don't have to say do it for all of them. So for instance, we can say, okay, maybe the description is optional, right? We don't need to have a description. It's not that important. And then whenever we are trying to access the description, we will do a simple null check. And if it's like null, we just don't like paste it on the screen, right? But for this, we will have all of them to be required. And now we have this like simple struct kind of like looking class, right? And that we can use for later.
I didn't really understand the difference between putting them in braces and putting required in front of all of them versus just writing them plainly.
So, okay, difference is this. Now we can do this. We can say ID is 10. We can say name is like this. So before we had to like put them in an order, and we know which one is which because only by the order. But now we can like name them. So that's the difference.
Okay, I see.
So it's a bit nicer. Like it's like keywords in Python, or like if you have done Swift, you also have like 2 different types of keywords and whatnot. This is sort of the equivalent of that in Flutter. You don't have to do it this way. It's just my preference, really. And you could, of course, have some of them to be like, you could say, okay, the ID is the only thing I care about. The rest should be optional, right? And then what you would do is you would say like this ID before the braces, and then remove these, and then you could remove all the requireds. And then what you would do is, I mean, since they are final, I do need to add the required, but you would do like SDG. So you could say 1, but then if you want to add the name, you would say name is this. So you can mix and match. Actually, that's how text works, right? If you go to this main.dart, so when we're creating a text right here, right? So the first thing, I don't say like the content, right? I just put the string in because that's the positional parameter that I need the data, and then the braces start, and then you can add the others.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how it works. And close these other things and get this back. Oh, just for the sake of completeness, I did say you could like, you don't have to put the required in, like if you don't want to, but then it complains, right? So to stop it from complaining, you could do this. So you could say this description, right? So you could make it an optional. So adding this means it's either a null value or a string. Like maybe it's a string, maybe it's not. And then when you try to use it, Flutter will ask you to check. Like it won't let you just assume it is a string. It will ask you to check. Yeah, and I guess we will have something that's kind of like that really soon when we are trying to fetch the data, because it might be there, it might not be there. Right, so we have this, but of course this we can't draw on the screen, right? So what we will do is we will create another class. We will call it SDG tile, just like the list tile, and it will extend what kind of widgets? What do you think? This suggestion is just tab 9. It's not the answer.
I don't know, but stateless.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be stateless because we don't like once we create one of the tiles, we won't really need to change anything in them, right? At least in this application, we would. We could be like we could want that, but in this case, we don't. So right example, now, yeah, go ahead.
For example, if you were to design an app where we were like, if you press the tile, it has to open like some different page. Did we have to change anything in that case, or would we be able to continue the same way?
You could wrap the tile in a gesture detector and then do it like that. Like for like minimal change, you have this thing called a gesture detector that lets you like put anything in it, like any widgets, and then it's sort of like a listener for like gesture events. Like if you put a like, okay, so for example, you would have, let's say we have these tiles already like defined, right? SDG tile, and these by themselves don't have like any functionality that's like opening a new page and whatnot, but we want to add it, right? Then we could do something like this and then provides like a function here.
Okay. So we don't have to have a state on that circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. So what you would want a state for would probably be something like if you had like a heart icon that you could press and it would like favorite something, but then you also want to change it to red, right? You are now changing something in the widget.
All right. Okay, I see.
All right. So now it gives an error, and it's not because of this override that we need, but it doesn't know what this is, and that's because we didn't import material.dart. You see, there is also Cupertino. This is like Apple's design system, but for now, we will just use this. The Cupertino is like what you would have if you were developing in Swift. Also extends, not extends, and it will ask us to do the override. And there we go. So now we can start actually building this. But before we do, I mean, we can just say like return, let's just say return text for now, text hello, right? And then before we actually start doing stuff here, we should put it on the screen somehow. So what we'll do is, instead of creating this list tile, we'll create an SDG tile, just one. And the thing is, it doesn't know what it is because we haven't imported it, but you can see it's kind of smart, right? It knows what you are trying to do. It suggests you to import that. And we just say, you could do either. I don't think it really matters. But yeah, so we just put it there automatically. So now we have an SDG tile, and you can see it's different, right? It doesn't have, so the list tile already has some padding, and its text was larger, but now we just return a simple text, and if you change it, right, it will change there also. Right, so, okay, let's think about this though. What do we want it to be like? We want an image, right? We want to have like the goal number, we want to have the name, and so there's a lot of like layouting to do, right? And before even that, we kind of need to like know that information, right? And the way we will know it is we will pass this widget, to this widget we will pass an SDG, and we'll use data from there. So it needs to have an SDG, and we can do it like this. So this is another field. We can say like, I guess we can just call it SDG, right? And then we will do the same thing, create constructor for final fields. And yeah, so we can make this optional, required. But here, so now this is a case where we don't really need to name it, right? Because it's the only thing that we're passing. So this time we can just make it a positional parameter. So maybe it's a good like example where you use it, where you don't. Okay, so it needs an SDG. And yeah, it should give an error here because we're not passing it one. So what we can do is in this build function, or like just here, we can, like even inside it, we can create a new SDG. I think we already have the import, right? We do, because it's in the same file, we already imported it. And now we need to pass all the required stuff for this, right? And it tells you actually the name parameter ID is required, blah, blah, blah. For all of them, it gives the same error. So let's just do that. So let's say its ID is 1. The name is, if you go back here, let's just do the first one, right? No poverty, like its title. No poverty. And then we have the description, which is, let's see, and poverty in all its forms everywhere. I can't really copy this, but it's short enough that I can type it myself. And poverty and all its forms everywhere, right? That's the description. And then the image URL. So let's see. The thing is, I can't even like right click it, right? It doesn't even appear. It does this card animation thing. So what we will do is we will put on our elite hacker hats, and what we will do is we will go to network here. You don't really have to, you could just Google it, but yeah, I can, you can really easily find, like, you can just filter by images. You can see they're all sort of here. They have the same link structure. It's just a number that changes. So we can just copy this in its entirety. And then if you come here, okay, so right now we don't need to, we just need to pass it as a string. So we select this in quotes. Right, so this now works, right? This should just say hello or whatever, because we're still not doing anything with that. But now what we could do is, since we have this SDG already populated, right? We could just say SDG.name, and instead of hello, it would say that. So this is how we access it, right? So very simply, we created like this container class. We created an instance of it, and we passed it to this SDG tile. If this is confusing, we could do this instead. So like, just cut it here. Like if we could just say, okay, final SDG. Oh boy. you could do it like this also. So you create one there, and then here you could just pass it. It's the same thing. And now you can see it still works. Oh, by the way, if you like, at least in Mac, when you sort of like click save here, it will take a screenshot. And also you can do Command R and it will start recording the screen, just so you know. Okay, right, so this works. And now we want to have like the image and whatnot. So let's think about it. Since we like generally, if you go back to if you remember the example I showed you, like the finished app I showed you in the beginning, it was sort of like going sideways, right, horizontal. So we need what's called a row to begin with. And so we had columns, right? I think I did show some columns. Yeah, so in the starter app, we have a column, right? We have, in the center, we have two pieces of text that are inside a column. And we also have its equivalent row, just rotated. So
in columns, isn't one column for image and one column for text, or is it something else?
Sorry, what?
Do you mean one column for image on the left and one column for text on the right, or is it something else?
No, I was just referring to like the app when we so when we create a new project, like the starter app that we had with the counter, like it had two pieces of text in the middle. I was just trying to remind you of an example of using columns. Right here, we will have something different. So just to start with, let's just put just the image here because that's the first thing that's going to go. So it goes from left to right. So the first child will be an image. And what we will do is, what we can do is we can say image.network. So just like the assets, here you provide the source, like the URL, and we have it under like SDG icon source, right? So that's how we defined it. And now hopefully we will have it. It will probably be huge because we didn't really give it a, so it's giant because it didn't limit its size in any way. It's like whatever it is, it's like 500 pixels or something. But you can see it's really easy. We just put an image there that fast. So what we can do is just straight up to this image, we can pass a scale, height, size. So you can see scale by default, it's 1, or you could like give width and height. We can do, in our case, like I want to know exactly how large it is. So we can do like, I misspelled height here. So let's say 128 pixels. That's about right. I normally like, I try to do it a bit smaller, but there's text here. So, you know, you kind of need to make it a bit larger. But that's fine. That's just design choice, right? But this is already like coming together, right? We will be adding more stuff here, and it's going to be really easy. So we can just say text, and I'm not gonna even do a placeholder now because we already have the data, right? We have the name. So if you just save that, you can see it's already there. So one thing that we will have to figure out is how do we like align this, and plus I want to put like something else under it, right? I want to put, actually, hold on, I think in the example that I did was, so I have the goal first, goal number, so sdg.id. Since this is an integer, we have to convert it to string. But this is what we had, right? First number, then the goal, then the title. But here, the problem is going to be they're all side by side, right? There isn't even a space character here. We want them to be in a column. So now what we will do is we will use a column within a row. So we will wrap these with a column, right? And then these will be like vertical inside this horizontal row. Does that make sense? Okay, good. It sometimes does get complicated, like you have column inside of a row, inside of column, inside of a row. But for this simple example, I hope it's easy to follow. Because like you do sometimes end up with having like 200 line sort of widgets just because of the layout, but it's not that common. Okay, so now we before like changing the text size, maybe we could change the alignment. So what we want is, and before that, so it just says 1 here, right? But we wanted to say goal 1. really easily we could just do this. So goal space plus that. So you can concatenate strings really easily, just the plus. Okay, so what we do now is two things, right? We want to, inside a column, we want to align everything to here, right? And then also up top. So that's two things we need to do. First, let's think about what axis this would be. So if you remember, we had main axis alignment and cross axis alignments. Those are always confused. I'm probably going to get it wrong this time too, but we'll see. So let's see, what does the main axis of a column mean? It's a column is vertical, so the main axis is vertical, and the cross axis will be horizontal. And in this axis, we want it to be at the start, right? So we will say cross axis alignments, and then that equals cross axis alignments. Dots. Okay, hold on. It didn't autocomplete for me. So what are our options here? Oh boy. What are the options here? We have it's sort of lagging really bad. Anyway, we're gonna say start. We have all these. Is there a typo here, or is it just?
Yeah, there's an alignment. A-L-I-N.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, because sometimes it just doesn't know, so I wasn't sure. Anyway, so our options are. So we have baseline, center, and start, stretch. So all we really need right now is start. Like and would obviously put it to the other side, and center is what we already had. So this is easy. And then what you want. So you may think, okay, so we will then do a main axis alignment, right? So this is the same main axis alignments that starts, but that's not going to do anything. The reason is it's not really this column that's defining what the height is, but you have to think about the row, right? The row by default places everything in the center line. So we have to change the alignments in the row. And let's think about which alignment that will be, right? So, this is like about the height, right? Where they start. So it's about the vertical axis. So the start of the vertical axis, right? That's what we need to specify. The vertical axis for the row is going to be the cross axis, because the main axis is the horizontal and the cross is the other one. Like this, you just can do by trial and error. Like, don't try to understand it. Like, I know, like it seems so simple, like when someone explains it, or like once you understand, but then you just keep forgetting, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But I can never like get it right in the first try. But you can see, like, just by specifying these two things. So in the row, we aligned everything to the top, and in this column, we aligned everything to the left. So that's nice. Now we can like add some custom styling here. So for the goal, so for both of them, we will use the same fonts. We will say style, we will create a new text style. And what we will do is, let's say font family. First of all, we will say Oswald. Let's see if that updates. Yeah, so it's a bit small now, so maybe we could increase it to like 16, font size 16. Right. Okay, that's a bit better. Maybe like 18 though. And then we can do the same thing. So same style, just a bit larger for this one, right? Maybe we can do like 22 here. And also we're missing a comma. So already it's really coming along, right? But the thing is, this is kind of ugly. We're just starting here, and it's, well, I mean, I guess it's almost done though. This video, but still, this style part is kind of ugly, right? And we are repeating the same thing over and over. So what we could do is just create like a style sheet. So you could do like a full-on theme. If you remember in the first example, you had like theme of context, text styles, or text theme, headline 4. We're not going to do that. We're just going to create a simple, just a simple another file here, and then we'll copy this. paste this here, and we're going to declare it like a global constant, right? So const, let's call this like small title. And so it's still complaining because it doesn't know what the text style is, because it also comes from the material library or package. So that's what we do. Yeah, the semicolon. And then we do like a normal title for the larger one, and then we say 22. Maybe not, let's not call it normal title. Like we don't need to body shame fonts here. Let's just call it medium. And then we can go in and use that instead, right? So it's going to be much cleaner. We will say a small title for the first one. In fact, let's maybe just so it's more descriptive, we can do, so we say it's small title style, right? That's because that's what it is. And then, so small title sounds like it's a piece of string, right? It's not. So we say this, we need to import it from style.dart. And here again, we do medium title style. Right, and if we format this, you can see it's much cleaner and it's still the same. One thing though, like these have really wacky like line heights. You can see that there's there's a lot of padding here, but I haven't actually defined any padding. It's just the way the font is. So I will add this like, I know how to fix it for this particular font. Like if you do height 1.2, which is the line height, right? So it's, by default, it looks like it's more than one line. So that's what I'm really doing. I'm decreasing it to a more nicer looking value. So you can see some of the padding just disappears. This is just like for this particular font that we did. So that's fine. And now, what else do we need? So we had 4 things, right? We added the icon, the goal number, and the name. All we have left is the description. And we will just do it the same way, right? So we probably want it under here. And what we can do is, so we could just add it like this, sdg.description. We will also give it another style in a bit, but if you just did it this way, you can see it kind of like keeps going, right? It doesn't know that it needs to like wrap around here. So what we can do is provide this optional parameter overflow. Soft wrap. Soft wrap, we will say true. And what will happen is, what should happen is when it reaches the end, it should wrap around, but right now it doesn't know where that end is, right? By nature, a row will just keep going in that direction. So very easily what we can do is we can wrap this entire column, so the column that contains these texts. And there are many ways to size this. You could do it like percentage, but the easiest way would be to say, put in a size box and say like 220, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever is right for the screen. So, and this isn't really a nice way because like it's specific to this screen, right? But for now it works and it's simple. We will keep it that way. And now you can see it ends somewhere around here. At least like this word doesn't fit. And we could probably see it if we did toggle debug painting. Yeah, I guess I did it all the way to the edge, huh? Oh no, sorry, it's here, yeah. So 220 pixels like puts it about here, which is nice, right? We want some space left here. Maybe we could do it a bit larger, but this is fine.
By the way, in this case, if we rotate the screen, it's still gonna end at the same place, right?
Right, we can actually test that. There are much better ways to do it. It's just, hold on. So here, yeah. Yeah. Depending on what your goal is, you may or may not want to do it that way. You could also do it like this. So I think you can specify like a flex factor. So it's like, yeah, so it kind of like in CSS, you could like give percentages, right? You can do that. You have like fraction size boxes, but then like I don't want to like try to work out like all these fractions and whatnot. Like having them be a specific specific length, like in pixels, it's sometimes easier because since everything knows what size it should be, you don't have, okay, so imagine, what if you had two columns within each other, right? A column containing a column. So how will like each one know how much space they should take, right? Or a list view inside a list view. It will try to keep growing forever, right? If it's an expandable widget, like if it's in a size box, or like if its parent has a fixed sort of size, then we'll just expand to that. But then if it doesn't end, if it's already infinite, putting two things together like that will be difficult. And rows and columns like to do that sometimes. So like whenever I can, I try to like specify a fixed size. So like for this image, we did the same, right? For this example, like if you were to do an actual like development project, like a production code here, you wouldn't do this. But you know, for this simple example, it's fine. Right. So let's keep going. Right. One other thing is I don't want it to be aligned like right here, because there's all this space, right? What we could do is just like maybe align this to the middle and make sure like it grows upward. So if it's like just one line, it's here. If it's two lines, it's like here, and so on. So what you could do is, so you kind of want to put like some space between these, right? You could just like put some padding here, and how you create padding by hand is like this. Normally it like does all this for you, but edge insets all we will say like 8. Like you could just put some padding here. There's some empty space, or maybe another size box. It's the same. What's happening? Do we have an error somewhere? Oh yeah, I don't have a comma here. Okay, so it will like put some fixed size here, but then like that's not exactly what we want. What we could do instead is put a spacer here. So what the spacer will do is it will take up all the remaining space and push this to the bottom. But then let's see what happens if we try to do it. The entire thing disappears, and if you check your console, you're gonna have many errors. And what happens is, so you can see, just like looking at the keywords, you have needs layout. Let's find something else that's red. Hold on. Save it. Okay, so in this case, it says, okay, it just says needs layout. Sometimes you will have the same type of error. It will say has size. So failed assertion has size because it doesn't have, it cannot infer what size it should be. So this is a problem, right? I do want to do it this way. I want to push everything else down, but then this row has no limit, right? This image is 128, but the column right now is like infinitely down the screen. So a really easy fix will be to wrap this entire row with a size box, right? And we sort of know what height we want it to be, right? Because let's say like we want the image to be on the edges like it is now. So if we just give the same height, what we will have is the image taking up the entire like left portion, right? And then this is aligned there, right? So this was kind of sketchy, right? I said it works for now, but this is the way you would do it, because here we do want it to be defined. Or you could again do like a fractional size box, but like it's fine to have like a fixed size for a tile. You could have like maybe, so one of the things I've done in another app, I had like two sizes, right? I don't do it now, but you could define like two sizes, two heights for this, like one small, one medium, right? And then you could like toggle between them. You just change this height, and everything will align. Because like if you think about it, if I increase this to like say 200, or maybe like decrease it, let's say, if I just decrease these two, like the rest of it will probably work, right? Well, it's too large to fit in here, but you get the point, right? It will align itself. Maybe like if you do 100, it will fit. So it's not as if we're like putting everything in absolute positions. We're just giving it a maximum size, sort of. But I will use, it was 128, right? Yeah, so let's keep it this way. Okay, so now the last thing we want to do is we want to make this a bit like, this is way too close here, and we want to give it a bit of padding, and also we want to update the style for this. For this one, let's say, let's define new style here, and let's call this like, I know, paragraph style. Like body style, you could say. The font family, we will use Oswald. Okay, let me show you what it looks like if we use Oswald. I want to say Roboto, but let's see what this looks like, right? Let's decrease the size to like 16, and then copy this, and then style will be paragraph style. So the reason I'm going to use Roboto is because it's going to become really difficult to read. Like for titles, it's fine, but for this, it's a bit too squished, right? It's not a really comfortable experience to read long text with this. So in like designer terms, what you would say is, okay, Oswald is a display typeface, like it's good for titles, and Roboto, which we'll switch to in a moment, it's more of a text type. So it's way easier to read. So this, I mean, this is a complete option. I'm just sticking by what the United Nations uses, right? You could do anything you want. You could do like a handwritten thing. Right, so now what else? So we can, basically the easiest way to like add some space here is wrap this entire column with some padding. And just by like that, it will be good enough, I think. Yeah, so this looks like serviceable, right? It's good enough for us right now. So what's happening again? We have this SDG class. We have this widget that builds on this information, and then we're creating an SDG here, and then we're passing it here. So we're doing this manually by hand. And now the next step will be to like fetch the data, right? All this data from the internet. Okay, so let's see, how do we do that? It's going to be a bit confusing at first, but it's not going to be too bad. So like if you just accept that the structure is what it is, like changing things within it isn't too difficult. So what we will do is, since we already have like these things here, maybe we could just use this file to add our like functions for fetching, right? So let's just think about what we want this. Yeah.
Before we get to the more complicated stuff, can we give a little break?
Yeah, okay, sure. I was just thinking about that. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, sure. So how many minutes?
Like 5?
Okay, that's fine. So 5-minute break, 1917.
Okay, sure.
Be done. Okay, bye-bye. Hi. So I think we're all here. I'll continue. So before I continue though, what do you think about the pace? Is it too fast, too slow?
I think it's fine. It's fine.
I don't like. I could take more time to explain things. I'm just kind of afraid of like running over time. So
okay.
Just tell me if it becomes a bit too complicated. Okay. So okay, that's great. So right now, what we will do is let's just like think about what we are going to get from the internet, right? So we want to write a function that will connect and give us some data, but what will the type of it be, right? We want to like get some JSON, but we want to also like convert it a bit. And like in the end, since we created this SDG like class, it will make sense for us to like return a list of SDGs, right? So that's what we're going to do. I mean, there isn't a single answer. You could like write a couple of functions that connect each other, but for now we will do a list. Let's call it like fetch SDGs. And then it's not going to take any parameters. It will just do the same thing every time. And now, okay, so let's start like this. So let's just so it doesn't complain about not having a return statement. Let's say final like SDGs is a list of SDGs. Right, and then we can return it as an empty list for now. And then like between these is all the meat and bones of it, right? Okay, so first of all, to connect to the internet, we will need a package. I think it's not built in, but it's really easy to add, right? We could go to PubSpec YAML and add a package by hand, just like we added like all these. But for adding packages, we have this command, right? Flutter. Actually, I need to get into the into this folder. SDG app, right? Okay, now I can do it. Flutter.
If we needed a package to connect to the internet, how did we load the image from the URL before?
Right, not a package to connect to the internet, but to make fetch requests would be the correct thing to say there.
Okay.
Yeah, but good, yeah, good catch. Okay, so it runs Flutter pub-get for us. We don't need to do it by hand. When it's done, we will be able to add. Let me just, yeah, okay, so let me try to remember. I think it's like, what if I just say HTTP? Let's find it. No, hold on, let me just refer to that old thing, because yeah, this is the sort of thing you just look at an example for. Yeah, so we just gonna copy this. Let's keep that open. So this is what we will import. You can do like as statements in Flutter as well. So we just say HTTP. Not sure if you need this, but yeah, this is how they do it in the. Yeah, it's unused. So yeah, okay, this is the official thing they did. So I did the same. Okay, so now what we can do is, so again, here we have a list, right? And then we have this response await statement. So we will recreate that bit by bit. So first, let's say final response, right? And then we want to use http.get. And then where do we connect to? Let's go back to our API here. And we can just say, okay, so this is what we're going to copy, right? So this is the URL, and SDGs will be the endpoint that we put. And then, so this, let me do it the wrong way first. So if you just say get this, it's going to complain because it wants a URI, not a string. What you can do is you say, instead of just this directly, you say URI HTTPS, because that's what how we want to connect. And then you put it here as a string, right? And then you need to remove this part or it will give an error because you're already telling it to use HTTPS, so you don't need to put it there. This is the way you can think about it. And then this part, the second part, unencoded path, is how you specify like the stuff after the link. So for our case, it will be this endpoint as DGs, right? And then the semicolon. So right now we are actually, like when we run this, we will actually do the get request without any sort of parameters. We just get all of it. And just to show you what sort of data will return. Actually, I do want to keep this tab for later. Let's do this, SDGs. If you just do this in your browser, you will just get all of this. So this is the data that will return. Okay, so how do we work with it? Well, since this is like a JSON or like a string, it's not like an object that Flutter can recognize, and we definitely don't want to parse it as a string, right? We can use something called the convert package. It will give us like some functionality to convert, to decode JSONs. So what we can do is, okay, I will show it this way. First, I won't use it. Let's just try to see what it's going to print, right? Let's say print response, right? So the thing is, if we try to do this, Okay, it will kind of work. Okay, so let me call this somewhere though, right? We're not calling this function anywhere, so it's not going to print it. Let's just like randomly call it here, because this is the only thing that's actually running now. And do we need to import this? No. Okay, so what we should see when we reload, invalid character, why? Did we, does it look invalid to you? It's just a number to me. That's weird. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we can copy this. Actually, hold on. What did I copy? Just the string part, right?
Maybe the slash is creating the problem, but I don't know.
It does not have a slash there. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, because it sort of adds it itself, right? So okay, so if we print it right now, we see an instance of future, whatever that is, and a response. And because the response does only contain that data, right? Like with HTTP requests, you have like the status, which is like 200 if it's okay, like the headers and whatnot. What we want is just the body. So when we try to print this, here's the issue. So we're sort of assuming that all the data is already here, right? Like it says the getter body isn't defined for type future response. The problem is the response isn't here yet. It's sort of wrapped in this future class. It's like a future is like a promise in JavaScript, if you know that. Basically, we can't assume that the response is already here and it's still not still loading, right? What we could do to resolve that is we could add an await call. So now we know that we need to wait, but then we can't just add this call and not change anything about this function, because now that here there's an await call, it became an async function, right? It will wait for something else to happen asynchronous. That's just how connecting to the internet works. So we need to say, okay, async. You don't need to remember this because it just won't let you do it otherwise. Then you can see this goes away. So we're sort of telling Flutter that it's okay to wait for this. By the way, like if you didn't do it asynchronously, somehow you managed to bypass this, what would happen is your entire app would freeze before this is done. So that's why we want to have it asynchronously done, right? Like when you're loading any image, like we will have a list, right? Every time you're trying to load something in, your entire thing would freeze. So that's what that's not really something we want. So okay, so this is resolved.
It's causing it to run in parallel. Like, is that the case?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
How exactly it's like creates threads and like how it distributes it, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah,
okay.
That is what's happening. Yeah, it does multiple things at once.
All right.
Right, or maybe like it maybe just checks it periodically really fast. I'm not sure. Like you could maybe get away with that, but yeah, probably parallel. So okay, so this is fine, but now you can see this error here, right? It says functions marked async must have return type assignable to future. So yeah, so the problem is since this function is async, like whenever we use this function somewhere, like this will return a list, right? We will say something to the line of like list equals this. But now, just like when we try to print the body, the list isn't here yet, right? So we can't just assume that it's here and assign it to something. So we also need to wrap this with the future. You can see like it just happens like step by step, right? We weren't able to do this, we had a wait. We weren't able to add a wait without doing this, so we added that, and then we had to add the future. So it's very safe, really. You can't really go around here. But this issue will, like the next thing we will tackle is how to work with the future. But now, if you look at here, you can see we actually do fetch the data, which is kind of cool, right? The thing with the conversion is that I was talking about. Okay, so let's see what we want to happen is, this is a list, right? A list of JSON objects. If we come here and look at the data, we have this like array, right? It starts here, and then we have objects like this, one by one. So what we would want to do, maybe like to see the first one, right? We would index it like this. But when we print it, what's going to happen is we're just going to get a single bracket because it thinks like it treats the entire thing like a string. So we're really just printing the first character. That's why we will do a JSON decode. So we can just wrap this and use this function. Oops, not there. Decode. And now, well, if we just print it like this, it's going to look exactly the same because the way Flutter shows like lists and whatnot is the same as here as the raw string. But right now it's converted to a list, and then that list contains dictionaries or maps, it's called in Flutter. So right now, if you do the same thing and try to access the first element, it will just print that first one. See? So this is what we want. And then inside this map, or like in Python it's called dictionary, in Flutter it's called map. You would just do another brackets like this. So you would specify the key to get like one of the piece of information there. So if you say name and reload again, you just get this. So this is how we access information there, and then we will do something like this to like populate SDGs and add them to the list and return. Okay, so I'm going to pick up the pace a bit. So what we will do is we will like loop over this, but instead of like doing these one by one in a fetch function, like it shouldn't really need to know like all that much about what this contains, what this needs, right? What would make more sense is to like just give this that piece of data and then let it figure it out. So what we could do is we could create like a different type of constructor, like if you know the factor pattern, this will make a lot of sense. If you don't know it, let's just assume that we're creating a function that can parse some that can take a map and then create a SDG using it. So we will say factory, let's say from JSON. So like normally you would create another file. Like if you want to do this in Java, you would create like a factory class. In Flutter, you have this really nice keyword. So what we want is, so we have a map at this point. It's technically not a JSON because we have already decoded it, but that's what I'm calling it. Like, deal with it. So let's just say map data. So we will pass, so it wants a return type. So okay, what we will do is we will return an SDG, a new one, and then really simply we will say like, okay, ID equals data ID, right? We will say name is data name. We have to put this in like this, right? Let's do two more. So this will be the description, and this will be what was it called? So icon src. So it's called icon src here, but in the JSON it's written like this. So that's why we have that change here. So okay, one thing that will give us an error later on, since this is in the map, it's stored as a string, the ID, even though it should be a number. So really easily what we can do is we can use int.parse. So we just parse it as an int because ID should be an integer. Right, so this will create new SDGs for us. And how we will do it is we will just write a simple for loop. We will say for like data. Oh, okay, so so let's say final data equals JSON decodes response. I shouldn't have deleted it, I forgot. Okay, so let's say this is data, right? So what we will do is we will say like for say var item in or we know that there are maps, right? We can just say map item in data, right? And in that for loop, we will do SDGs that add, SDGs being this list. We will say add SDG, then we will call that new constructor or factory we just created, and we will say, we'll just give it the item. And that will, so you can see it's much cleaner, right? Instead of writing like all of this in the fetch function, we sort of delegated that responsibility to the class itself. So if anything changes within the class, right, maybe maybe we will want to add a check to make sure like the ID isn't negative, right? The class itself can deal with it. So that's why we will do it like that. Okay, so we could, just to check, we can print the list now before we return, because we're still not showing it there. What we will do is we will reload, and you can see a list of like just SDGs. It says instance of SDG because we're just printing the entire object, but yeah. So trust me, it works. You will see in a second like all different things here, all the different like descriptions, names. But we now need to figure out how to, like, if you remember, this returns a future, right? So we can't just say what you would want to do. Like, let's pretend it's not a future, right? It just returns a list of these, right? What you would then probably want to do is you would come here. So here we create an SDG like object, right? And we pass it here to the children. Instead, what we could do is we would come here, we would say, okay, fetch all or fetch SDGs, right? And then since this returns a list, I can map it to something else, right? I would very simply say, okay, map each item to an SDG tile, right? Because every item is an SDG. So you would just say this, and then you would just add this to list. And really, it kind of seems to work, right? You only have this small error here, but the rest, like this code makes sense, it works, right? But the problem here, it says the method map isn't defined for the type future because it doesn't return a list, it returns a future. So that's the problem here. So what we will do instead is we will, let's like not delete this part maybe, right? Because that will become useful. We will like in the end do that, but what we need to do instead is, or what we can do instead is we can use what's called a future builder. So a future builder is, it's also a widget, right? But it can sort of wait for data to come in. Do I have too many? Hold on. Before I continue, I want to make sure. Yeah, okay, so I do need to delete one of them. Cool. Okay, so future builder, it's gonna take two things. First, it's going to take a future, which is, in our case, this, right? You can actually delete it now. We'll do this. I mean, you don't have to call it here. You could assign it to something, like, because you could say like feature, blah, 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 final SDG, that could be a feature or whatever, but here we can just call it as well. And then it will also ask for a builder, parameter name builder. So let's add that. And it looks really complicated at first, but really it's taking a build context, which you have already like seen, right? Like this also takes a build context. So it's just like passes that, that's fine. And then this thing, whatever it is. So don't look at the type for now, but just look at this. It just takes another argument called snapshot. And what snapshot is, it's sort of like your future, or well, the contents of the future at any given moment. So when you first make the request, it's still loading, so it's empty. When it's done, that snapshot will have some data in it. So think of it like opening a box and checking it every once in a while. So that's what the snapshot represents, that the state of the future at any given time. So what we can do is check what that state is, right? We can do something like snapshot has data. That's what we can, that's one of the things we can check. Bruh, come on. Yeah, okay. So you can say print like loaded, right? And otherwise we could say like print still loading, right? It could do something like this. Of course, the thing is, this does need to return, if you check, like it does need to return a widget. So what we can do is return a circular progress indicator, which is this just a loading animation. Let's put it in let's put it in the center. So wrap it center, right? And now when I reload, we're going to have this. So this will disappear. Since I'm not really creating any tiles right now, this will, like, in either case, this will return, but we'll see that if it loaded or not. So it says still loading. You can see like these got printed from the fetch call, right? And now it says loaded. So that all makes sense. Although before we move on, we don't really need this anymore. So let's get rid of that. And now, well, here, maybe we could move this here when it's still loading, right? That's when we really need it. But when it's loaded, we want to return something else. In fact, what we want to return is the list view containing everything, right? So what we will do is we will say, okay, return a list view. And the children will be, well, this, right? Remember this map thing we did? Only this time, instead of saying fetch SDGs and then map, what we have is a snapshot, right? So we will say snapshot that's data, because that's the part. So that's the part that contains the list. So if you check this type, actually, it says async snapshot of type list of SDGs, right? So that's what the data is. If you don't specify this, like, it won't know. So since this is a list, we're going to use map on it, right? But if we didn't specify this, it wouldn't know that it was something that we could use map on. So that's why you need to specify it, but it will do it for you. Like, once you provide a feature and then create the builder, automatically it will do all that for you. So snapshot that data, and then we paste this, right? It seems to work, but then we still get this error. Let's check what this is. So it says the method map can be conditionally invoked because the receiver can be null, right? So at this point, since we already checked if the snapshot has data, we know that it's not going to be null. So what we can do is we can say, we can shallot it so it gets scared and prints it for us. Right, so this just says, I know it's not null, basically. Okay, what else? So we need a semicolon here. And if all goes according to plan, once I save this, we should see everything. There we go, it's loading. Yeah, so, okay, it's all here. There are lots of errors. Don't panic, nobody picnic. But here, you can see we're successful loading everything, right? So it's reading all the data that we had in the server, right? And then it's putting everything in its right place. But the only problem here is some of these descriptions are a bit too long to fit inside here. What we will do is a very simple fix. So I'm just going to come here to the tile, and to the texts, I'll just add a couple of things. So we will say max lines, like 2, and then, okay, so it will at least, okay, so it cuts here. It will like do 2 lines and cut the rest. By the way, I don't like this, so maybe we could make that container a bit larger. So, wait, which one is it? This is the one we're working with. Where is ours? So could we do it like 230? I just don't want this to go that way. Okay, what about this? Maybe if we just go to style and did this like that. Okay, so just making sure these all fit. Well, I guess some of them are still too large. Anyway, that's fine. In fact, if it doesn't fix all of them, I think this is better. Okay, so here we said, so max line is 2, and then the rest gets cut, but you don't really understand like if it's cut or not, right? So what we can do is, in the text style, not in the text itself, to the style we can add this overflow thing and specify how it's going to show overflow. So one of the options we have is ellipsis, so text overflow, I believe. Yeah, so the default is just to clip it. We will do ellipsis. So it will just show the 3 dots. Okay, so this doesn't clip, but here you can see it just says there's more. Like normally, like if we're building an app, we would probably do something like, I don't know, maybe you could click on it to see the description, but here it's fine. Also, let me see how I did it in the other one, because I remember fixing this real quick. So it's 22, and here, what was the container length? I did 230 and that fixed it, huh? But it's the same. I guess maybe there's a difference with, anyway, that doesn't matter. Maybe okay, that works. So here we have some more space. Sorry, that was too annoying for me to continue without fixing. Okay, so success, right? We have created a list that has all of these things. It shows them, it pulls them from the internet. It's all nice. We can add some styling here as well. Like these are all, it kind of look, it does have this like kind of nice look, but I don't really like that these like all touch each other. So maybe we could add some padding to the entire thing. This is really like your call. So you could say padding here, right? So that already takes care of a lot of it. Maybe we could, one of the things we could do is instead of setting all of the padding here, we could just say, okay, so here's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to say only top. So this is for each individual tile, okay? So all I want to make sure of is like these tiles have vertical space between them, and then the horizontal padding, I could do it in the list view. I could just wrap the entire list view with padding, right? So we will do this. I don't want to add all of them. I don't want the list view to have vertical padding, because if you do it, what's going to happen is you see like at the bottom, it will clip all of it. So we only want horizontal here. Oh, sorry, that's symmetric. We say symmetric, and then we say horizontal. So your options are to specify all of them with a single value, symmetric for like vertical and horizontal, or like you don't have to provide both of them. You can provide any optionally. And if you say only, you can provide like each side individually. So here, if we only give the list view horizontal, you can see here and here, we don't have any cutoffs, but we have nice padding on the horizontal axis. And then here, since this and this is the same, you know, looks more balanced. So, okay, this is nice. We could do more things. So really easily, what could we do? Let's say, so instead of a size box, let's say we put this in a container, so we can maybe like set its background, right? So if we say a container, we can add this property called decoration. And then I'm just going to copy this over from what I've already done. So like this, and I'll explain it in a second. So what do we have here? We have a box decoration for decoration part. We can specify a color. Let me reload it so you can see the effects. Okay, it's not very extreme. Let me just make this color a bit darker, like 300. Okay, so what this is in colors, you have, like if you remember these things from yesterday, basically that's what we're setting, right? If you call pink with 50, this is the shade you get. If you just call it like normally, this is the one you get, and you can specify other shades. This is what the swatches are. I think I showed them again in the beginning of this workshop, right? But here's what it looks like now. It has a very slight shadow. We are using black 12. If we just use black 12 is like a little like transparent version of black. If we just said black, it's going to look really horrible like this. So we're using some transparency for it. So this is just an example. And then we have a border radius. You can see if I increase it a bit, you can see like the edges are rounded and all nice. Although here they aren't rounded. The reason for that is the image sort of doesn't really follow that rule. Like it doesn't really, how to say, it doesn't really adapt to whatever the continuous border radius is. It's like pasted on there. So what we could do for the image, this is another way of like adding border radius. We could say wrap with widgets, and then we say clip r rects. You have all kinds of clips. You have clip ovals, you have clip rects. R rect is round rectangle. So what we can do here is just like this border radius, we can specify a border radius to this. And now you can see the image is rounded all over. So it's anything you put in a clip, it will like actual clip. It's like a cookie cutter, you can think of it. But here we don't want these edges, so we could say instead of border radius circular, I think what we could do is, let's see, I think there's an example here as well. You could just copy that. Yeah, so you say border radius only. Let me just copy this again. Okay, so just like with padding, instead of saying just circular, you could say border radius only, right? And then you can specify, each corner a different value. And now if you do that, you should see, yeah, so it only gets cut off here. And let's make these the same value. So 10. 10. Okay, all nice and easy. So what did we do so far? We fetched some data from the internet. We worked with a JSON. We converted it to a custom data structure here. And then we used that data structure to create tiles. And we did all of that asynchronously using Future Builder. So we did a lot today, right? One last thing we will do is, I haven't showed you how to take user inputs and how to navigate to new pages. But with all the things we have here, we can really easily creating a page is already really easy. And then the user input, we will do a search functionality for it. And since I think I already showed you, but the API already provides a search like algorithm. If you just send it the correct data, it will find you what you're looking for. So it's going to be really easy to add. Okay, so far so good, right? Are there any questions?
No, it's all good.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a button here that will take us to a new page. So let's start by adding the button. We will say to the app bar, we can add what's called a list of actions, and these can be anything. In our case, we will just have a single icon button. We'll give it an icon, which will be like this. Icons, we'll say search. The icon button will want to have an unpressed method. Let's leave it empty for now and see what happens. Okay, so it's already here. Actually, if I try to press it, you can see it's there. But since we changed this color to white, we also need to make sure this is black as well. So this is what happens when you don't actually correctly make actual themes for your app. You just color everything as you go along. But it's really easy to fix as well. You just say color is at black. That will work for us. And now we should be able to see it here. Right, there you go. So it's a button that we can press. Of course, it does nothing right now. What we wanted to do is we wanted to navigate to a new screen, and that will be really easy as well. So we use what's called the navigator. Don't even need to import anything, it's just there. So it will take in, so it does have some weird syntax though, kind of difficult to memorize, but it's really easy. So, okay, you say navigator push. This is the official thing. My mouse died. Question mark. Oh, that's great. Yeah, of course, die on me mid-workshop. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this is like a really simple example you have. Like if you search for Flutter, like how do I go to a new screen? This is what you'll find. And let me just like take this opportunity to show you the like dart pad thingy. My mouse is acting all crazy. So in this example, see this button is what does the pushing. You say open routes, and then like, go back. You can do. Hold on, let me just switch to this trackpad. Okay, so yeah, so here they did like pushing and popping with the buttons. What we will do is like we'll start with the screen. We'll press a button, and then we will use this back button that automatically gets placed to go back. Here you can see they did pop as well. So for the second page, that's what they did. We won't even do that. It's going to be much simpler because Flutter already provides everything we need. So we're going to say navigator.push. And then if we go back, you can see it takes a context, which is easy. But then you have this thing called a material page route. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just like, in the end, what it looks like is this. So you add this other thing here. It takes a builder and whatnot, but you don't really need to understand what it does. All you need to understand is whatever like this function maps to or like returns is going to be your new route. So in our case, we could say a scaffold, right? Because we want an entirely new page. And then let's say an app bar, and we will just do an empty app bar for now. If it's all correct, let's see. Guess there is one extra. Okay, so on pressed, it's gonna need a semicolon. We haven't closed navigator.push. This we don't need. I think we need another one. I think I made it worse. Okay, so, oh yeah, so here we had the closing one. Okay, there we go. I'm using this like colorful brackets extension. I recommend it. It makes debugging stuff like this easier. Okay, now if you click this, we should go to a new screen, and there you go. That easy. Of course, this screen will have to customize, but it's going to be really easy because we have already established some. Like, we already have like all the list creation things we need, right? Let me try again with the mouse because it's really uncomfortable otherwise.
Do we have to customize the new screen inside that scaffold thing, or
no.
That's fine. Okay.
So yeah, that will be really bad, right? You will have to write screen within screens.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that. What we will do is we'll come here, create a new file. We will say like search page, right? That seems appropriate. And then, well, we can just write whatever we want, right? We can say class search page. In fact, okay, let's see. Do we want this to be a stateful widget? We probably do, right? Because we're going to write stuff in it, and then we're going to change what is shown in the list. So we're probably better off just saying, okay, stful, and then call this search page, right? And now all it is an empty container. And also we have all these errors because we haven't imported the material library. Let's just do that real quick. And now if you go back and like, let's copy the scaffold that we had up to here. We will go back here. Instead of this container, we will return that scaffold. Oops. Okay, that seems good. Here, instead of this, we will say search page. Right, we will have to import it. And now, if we reload, it should just work. Yeah. So No, you don't have to do it inside there.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
put it's anywhere you like.
Okay,
It doesn't have to be a separate file as well, of course. So okay, what do you want to do here? So the app bar we probably want to keep the same, right? Except we don't want another button here, but the rest will be the same. So let's just copy that. So up to the actions part, right? We can copy all this. Let's come here. I think we'll need to add another parentheses here. Right, so let's just come back here. Okay, so the thing is we don't see the back button right now because what we did is we sort of override that part because we set leading elements. Normally what Flutter does is it inserts that back button to the leading element, but since we already have something there, it doesn't do that. So if we just delete this, we don't need it anyway. It will put a back button there, but again, it's all black, all white, sorry. So what we can do is, well, this is, you don't need to remember this, but this is a solution for like, because like it gets added automatically, we don't really have control over the specific icon, but what we can do is, if you look at the app bar here, so it has what is called an icon theme. So what we will do is, let's say icon theme data, and then we say color, colors black, and that will just work. So let's add the const as well. Right, and now when we reload, you will see the back button appear. Once we have done this, like remember how we specified the color for this as well? Like we could just do the icon theme instead, and it will do it for all of them. But yeah. Okay, so all good, right? What we need to do is we want to add, well, we want to add the list, but we will like search for a specific word, right? And then only show those results. So how can we do that? We won't like get all data and then do the search ourselves, because what we can do is very simply by adding some more parameters here, search for a specific string. So let's start by just copying all this over. It's going to be really similar. We will call it, let's say, search SDGs, right? We need a string as an input for this function. We will say str, right? And then this, like get request, we can also give it some parameters. You can see like map, it says map string to string, right? These are all the optional parameters you can provide it. And in our case, what we will do is, like if this doesn't make too much sense, don't worry. This is like more networking than Flutter. But really what it will do is, it will just, okay, remember this endpoint that we had? Like it says SDGs. If you do this, let's say poverty, right? This is what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna add that parameter there, but it will do it itself. We will just say it like this, var, let's say query parameters, right? Because we are querying the database, let's just call it that. Let's say what we will have is a name, and then to that name we will assign the str. So what we're doing is we're just creating a map that contains our parameters, and then we can just slap that bad boy over here. Query parameters, and the warning should go away, hopefully. Why is there a warning? Right, oh, I think, sorry, not there, but here. Right, to the URI part. Okay, so now if we use this with a string that we provide, instead of getting all the results, we will just get whatever matches this. The rest of the code obviously doesn't change because we did it in a loop, right? If it's just one object, it will be the same result. Like it's not going to break. So what we can do is we will just take all this future builder stuff that we already did, and we will just change what the future is, right? Because the rest is really going to be the same. All the styling, like it will just return the same list view here, right? Just with a different list of list of SDGs. So this is what we'll copy. Then we will say, okay, where does the app bar end? Here, right? So after the app bar, we will add the body. Sorry. Did I say? Okay, what's wrong? Okay, sorry. It's all correct. It's just we didn't import this, right? So let's import sdg.dart, and we have to change this to search sdg, which will want a string. For now, let's just say poverty. We still don't take user input, right? But now when we reload, we should just see that single thing, which is great. So we are already doing the search. We just need to get some user inputs and put this here. How should we do it? So my idea is to put like a search bar here, and then we can like just get the data from there. So the way I'm going to do it is, okay, so this is where it gets interesting, right? So this entire thing is a list view, right? What you would want to do is maybe, okay, since I want them vertically stacked, let's put them in a column. But then what's going to happen is you have a list view and a column like fighting for space, right? The list view wants to expand, the column doesn't know how much space to give it. So what's going to happen is one of the errors I was talking about. So let's say, okay, the body, instead of being just the feature builder, let's say we wrap it with a column. This by itself, let's see if that's fine. Yeah, see, you can, just putting it in a column by itself doesn't work because it says failed assertion has size. So that's going to be a problem. One of the things we could do is lists have this nice parameter called shrink wrap, which is sort of like, what it does is like it tells the list to take only the space that it requires and not more. So it won't expand to fill the rest of the screen. We'll say true. So that means we won't be able to scroll from here probably, right? See, I can't really scroll from here anymore, but that's fine, right? As long as I'm, what's up now? Okay. As long as I'm like able to see it and click it, it's fine. So that's the difference. It doesn't take the entire screen, which works. But then let's see what's happened. So we want to add something else here, which will be the text input thingy that we will need. And what we have is something called a text field. And I think we can just create it without giving it anything.
Wait, I missed something about the previous part. Did we have to wrap this in a column, or did we just do it to see what happens?
We did it to add this.
Okay.
So we have a list view, like down from the blue line is the list view that we are creating for these, but then we want to add something above it. So we had to wrap it all in a column, so to put them on top of each other, right? So
okay.
Like, if you don't do it, where do we put the text field, right? It's not like in HTML where you can just like put it there and it will like put them side by side. You have to like tell it explicitly column because the scaffold only takes a single widget.
Okay.
Right? So you have to, yeah. Okay, so this works. I can actually type here. In fact, if in device, I think, or IO, keyboards, so toggle software keyboards. What's up now? Okay, that's weird. Okay, never mind. Oh, I think it's because I have a keyboard connected. What if I did this? Yeah, okay, there we go. So that's what the error was. So you could just type it like this. It works, right? But I don't want to type using my mouse. So I'm just gonna use my actual keyboard. Okay, right now, of course, it doesn't really do anything because we're just passing poverty, right? And before we like go on with that, let's just like really quickly, like you can't even see the cursor, right? So let's just fix that real quick. What we could do is like maybe we could wrap this with another container, and then we could steal like that STG styling that we just did. Where is it? So here, this decoration, right? We could just use the same, and then come back and say this, and then hopefully, yeah, so we just need to wrap it with the padding to see the effect. There you go. It's kind of, so I forgot to fix this color, by the way. So I want it to be much lighter than that. Right, we could continue with like, so you could like remove this underline. Actually, let me do this real quick. So, okay, instead of just having a text field, let's really quickly say, okay, it should be a row, and then we could do like icons search, right? Just add this here. And then we should have, yeah, okay, we do have to center it somehow. Anyway, let's not get into it too much because we don't have too much time. Let's not spend time styling. But if you just have text fields, it still functions correctly. So why does it not have size still? Still giving the error, which is somewhat weird. Oh, is it because it's a row? So let's take that back. Was it still there before the row? No, okay, it's just the row. So yeah, the row within the column, again, that same problem, we would have to give it a size. Let's not deal with that, but you already know how to do it, right? Because we did it for this. So just like adding the picture, we could add the icon there. But what we could easily do is to at least see the cursor. We could just wrap this with, some padding if it decides to load. Right, so it's somewhat prettier this way. Okay, so that sort of works. We can specify the colors and whatnot later on if you want to. It's fine for now. So what we need to do is get the data within this text field, right? What the user has typed in. So what we can do is we can use this onChanged property. See, you have onSubmitted, we have onChanged. We will use onChanged so that we keep checking as the user keeps typing, so they don't have to like type it all out. Maybe we can try to guess. Really easily, what we'll do is we'll just keep the current input. We'll say string query. We will start with an empty string, and then what we'll do is we'll come here where we say poverty. Instead of that, we'll just say query. So since it's empty right now, it will match all of the items. And what will happen is we will get all of them, and you will see there is this like ugly thing, right? It's saying it's overflowed. The reason for that is the list view itself is fine. It's like extending past the screen, but the column isn't, right? The column thinks it should be staying within the screen boundary. So what we could do is like a really hacky solution that actually works is we could wrap two list views inside each other, which is kind of scary, right? What will happen? It works because we have shrink wrapped the inner list, so it doesn't try to expand, but then you can't really scroll easily. And what you can do is you can tell which list needs to be scrollable, right? So we will say, okay, the outer list will be the primary list. Okay, so we want this to be the scrollable one, or we want this one to have focus, and we say this one should just yeah, so this one should just like listen to what the other one says, basically. So when you do this, you should be able to scroll. So like with this sort of setup, the entire search bar also moves. Like this isn't necessarily the correct way to do it. It just depends on what you want. For our purposes, it's fine. And now, okay, so all we have left to do is, where's text field? So here we need to define the unchanged function to change the query variable we have there. So it will say unchanged, and then it should take a string. So if you hover over it, it will tell you that, okay, unchanged should be a function. Come on. Okay, it doesn't want to tell me for some reason. Okay, but we know that it should take a string, and then we can tell it to do whatever we want. So would you like to help me with this? What we will do with the string that's currently typed in. Come on, it's simple. So we have the query string up here, right? So we want to set this to something else, and it's not final if you pay attention. So we can change it.
Okay.
So what we do here? What do we do here?
So we set the string query to whatever the user input is.
Like this? Or is there more to it?
Maybe, I don't know.
Try to remember. So what are we doing right now? Just like, why do we do this? So what effect does this have on the app? This line of code, what does it do?
I mean, when we write a character on the search bar, it has to, you know, find the STGs that match that character in the title,
right.
For example.
But more simple, like this line 44, what does it do? It assigns the
query to whatever the str is.
Right, so it changes what query is, right? And whenever we change something in a stateful widget, what do we need to do?
We need to update something?
Right, we are updating it, but how will Flutter know that we have done the update, right? It needs to run all of this again, right? Because at first the query is, well, we have set the query, but Flutter doesn't know that it needs to redraw itself, right? Or the screen. So what we do is we wrap this with set state. The thing that you always forget, right?
Yeah.
I told you, like you're gonna keep forgetting it. So, right, once we have done that, what should happen is when we type poverty here, and sometimes this will happen. You can see like it type 3 R's. Sometimes this, like using the hardware keyboard, does that. But if we try to march through it, you can see it works. You can try another one. Let's say like ins. Yeah, that will show like maybe, let's say like just type A to get all of the ones that have A in them. Or okay, so that's not how it works. I guess it's no, hold on, it should be. Yeah, okay, that works. So we only get like the ones that have A in them, and so forth. So you can see like doing it this way. So I type P, you know, it did these, and then O, like poverty, it keeps decreasing, right? So it's like autocomplete search in a way. But yeah, I think that's all that we had to do for this app. So we did fetching, we did like parsing JSONs, we created multiple screens, we created multiple files for the first time, right? We navigated, we can go back and forth. So here we can see all of them, and if you want to search for something, you come here, it loads it again. We use like assets, we use custom fonts, we use feature builders. So really this is like just with these, you could create, I don't know, like most simple apps don't really need more than this, I suppose, right? The rest will be just like having some application logic or whatever. But in terms of like the building blocks of Flutter, this is really like, I don't know, 70% of it for simple apps, I suppose. But yeah, that's about it. Do you have any questions or anything that didn't sort of click?
You told that when we implemented the search functionality, implementing a list within lists was like actually a bad way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the better solution?
Okay, you could do something like, let's see. It really depends on where exactly you want to put this search bar. Oh, sorry, it was in this. It really depends on what you want to do with this, right? You could, let's see. You would find a way to do this. So you would probably make it a column. Where is it? Well, let me just talk over the screen. Like, we don't really need to write it, but what I will do is I would make this a column, but then I will figure out like a way for the lists to stop here instead of expanding. You can just put it in a container, right? You can figure out what size it needs to be, right? You have something called a save area. Where are we? So it's in the search page. So let's see. I don't want to like test it right now because like sometimes it does do like different things than what you expect. But let's try to remove this primary thing here. So it goes back to normal. And then instead of having a lists view, let's make it a column. Right. So come on. Okay, so we should just get the error, right? With the overflow thing. Right, so technically, if you just ignore this error, because this won't show up in your production app, like it's just a debug thing, you can turn this off. Like it still works, like it works correctly.
All right.
The issue you have is the list doesn't know that it needs to stop there, and like in the lists you have this incredibly long screen, and you're able to like view the entire list, so it doesn't know that it can scroll. And the reason it goes back here is it thinks you're already at the end of the list. So just like pulling it here would like pull it back. Like that's what happens. So if you just put it in a box of some height, it doesn't matter what it's going to be. Let's say a size box. With a specific height, let's say like 200, so it's like really short. It's just gonna cut the lists somewhere here, right? And it's not gonna give an error because it's fine, right? This is the container that the list has, and within it will work correctly. And once I reach the end, it will like do this animation. We could try a save area. Let's see. I'm not sure like what sort of parent-child relationship this has. In theory, it should just constrain everything to the viewable area in the screen. In theory, yeah. See, for some reason it doesn't do that. I would have to like check how exactly it works. But this is a way you could do it. Just be more careful with it. You could use another way. You could just not even deal with that problem, probably. Oh no, it will work the same way, never mind. But just to show you, since I thought of it, what we could do is, okay, so you have what's called the bottom navigation bar. That too is actually an important part of building an app, I guess. Just to take us to 80%, right? Bottom navigation bar. What's happening? Okay, just like the floating action button, if you remember, and the app bar, you do have a built-in class. Bar, and then what this is going to look like is I think it needs like at least 3 items. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it wants items required, and then yeah, okay, so here's how it works. So you say items is going to be a list of bottom navigation bar items. Right, and I believe Okay, so it needs an icon and a title. So we could just say icon. Come on. Okay, icon is icons or icon, then icons. That's like home, for instance, right? And then let's like duplicate this. Let's have 3 homes. Why not? You're a billionaire. And then we need to have 3 corresponding pages. So I believe, where is it? Yeah, on tap is, I think, what we need. So give this an on tap. And then I believe it needs an index. Right, so int is int being the like current page, the index of the current item. So what you could then do is, remember this, where was it? Where were we pushing? Yeah. Okay, so we will do something like this. So let's say we copy this and then we come back here. Let's say okay, so for any sort of value, like for anything that you press here in this main, what's up now? Oh, they need titles. Title, does it need to be a text or a string? Let's check. Let's see real quick. It didn't say title or label. Okay. Okay, I think that just needs to be a string. So let's say home for all of them. You don't really need to flesh it all out. Right, once we do this, see we have 3 homes. We can customize it, of course, but whenever we like press another one, like pretend we went to that page, right? And now what you could do okay, so this one doesn't have a button navigation bar, but then it will be like easier to figure out where this ends, because that's like all the length of the body and you can actually see it doesn't go off the screen. Like it will be just really easy to guesstimate where it ends in terms of like percentage or pixels. It really depends on like what, like you can use pixels if you don't plan on having like a responsive design, right? Maybe you do want it to be like 500 by 500 every time. Like games do it all of the time, right? Like simple, if you download a simple, like a Flash game, they usually don't scale, right? So in that sort of application, you can use absolute values. Here, should I just add it? We are running over time though. Okay, let me, instead of trying it again, let me just see how it's supposed to work. Hold on. Come on. Okay, so let's go to Safari. Okay, so safe area Flutter. Like this is actually like 90% of, like with any development task, like 90% of your time is spent on like Stack Overflow and the Flutter, like that Flutter.dev documentations, they're also nice. So here, technically, it's supposed to see like when you put it in the safe area, it's supposed to like crop it over here. For some reason, it didn't do it for us. To be honest, not sure why. Maybe we could try again just to see what happens. Because I was doubting myself, but now it does seem like the correct thing to do. So rapid widgets, safe area. Let's see if it changes anything with like the pixel counts, right? I'm reloading. Oh, what's happening probably is the column like first tries to expand and then the safe area kicks in. So what if we put both of them in the safe area, like the column and the list? Place. I'm not even in the right page. Yeah. Okay, it makes sense. It didn't have an effect. The same thing. Okay, we're expecting it to not work. Yeah, it's still the same. Let's try wrapping this with safe area. Yeah, I know. See, it just changed where the column ends, but then the list doesn't know that it needs to be that large. So to be honest, I'm not sure. I have solved this problem before. I just don't remember how. But really, this is like any parts, like any sort of UI thing. Like I'm not sure how much experience you have. Like I apologize if I'm underestimating. But like if it's HTML, like any web dev, like React, you're gonna have like this problem like over and over again, right? It seems like it should make sense, right? Why doesn't it just crop it like inside the safe area and then know that it's fine? But it just doesn't want to do it for some reason. And, hey, didn't I wrap this?
Okay.
Did I undo it now? Did I actually not do it somehow? Let's try once again. I was hoping for at least like it's saying less pixels. I was hoping maybe, okay, it was being pushed down, but no. It's exactly the same. Yeah, so in the end, never mind.
Okay.
Let's see. There's this, like one last thing I'll show you is there is this handy page for Flutter layouts that could be useful in, so this page in the docs, it shows you visually how everything sort of scales. So you can see like these sort of like columns and rows, like examples. It will show you like the tree of this example thing, and then I believe maybe this one also, or is it the same? No, yeah, there's another example here. So if you just like search for layouts Flutter, you will have like all kinds of examples, because this is really just like, it depends entirely on what exactly you want to do. So it's really problem specific most of the time. But yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much.